This is Bitcoin on the weekly chart, and it just occurred to me. Bitcoin has pretty much gone into hibernation. This weekly chart is like over 2 months of consolidation. I don't know why, but it just feels like last week Bitcoin was like testing that all-time high area, and it hasn't been just a week ago. This has been months. This is crazy. How long? How much longer on this Bitcoin chart do we have? I think we're getting very close to finally this consolidation being over. One way or another, I'm going to show you exactly how this might end. ADA charts, we're going to have some fun on the daily. We're going to speculate a little bit. When is ADA going to break back above the dollar? When is the consolidation on ADA going to end? We're going to break that down in this video. Hit the subscribe, hit the like. Let's jump into the video. And I want to start on the weekly. There it is. This is always painful. And if you've been in crypto over the years, these types of moves, these environments that we find ourselves in, they happen often. What I want to do is I want to zoom out. I want to just kind of mention something. It is a little bit, the charts are a little bit nervous, right? If you just look at this general toppy type of move. But what I really want to do is I kind of want to zoom out even more than just kind of that last all-time high area. This is where Bitcoin is testing. But I want to discuss that timeline of how long Bitcoin's actually testing all-time highs. Think about this. Here's all-time highs last cycle. Bitcoin, and we just talked about this, for around 2 months has been consolidating in that area. And so I went back and I was like, you know what? Last cycle, what was happening when Bitcoin was testing all-time highs? And this is what it looked like. This was very not painful. And if you were here last cycle, you know exactly what I'm talking about. We were waiting just for this massive move to the upside. And there's a couple red candles in there. And there's like, you know, a few weeks of consolidation basically. But even those red candles are bullish looking. It's higher highs and higher lows as Bitcoin's in that all-time high range. And when I'm talking about all-time high range, I'm talking about this 2017 area. So didn't take very long for Bitcoin to break through that area before continuing the bull market. So we look now at this cycle and we're like, man, what is this? What is going on? But then we zoom out even more and we go back to the cycle before that. And this is where things become very interesting to me. And then we're going to actually dig into the daily chart and discuss how much longer before this consolidation ends and what might Bitcoin do next in terms of targets and moves. But Bitcoin on the weekly, back to this weekly conversation, all-time high of 2013 right here. Check it out. What did Bitcoin do? It tested that area. And this is way more common or similar to what is actually occurring right now. If we look at this Bitcoin consolidation on the weekly, Bitcoin was testing that all-time high area in this general area. And we're talking, it pretty much failed right here to break up, right? And then we'll have a big move to the downside. So that's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. And then a few weeks of upside. We're going on what, 9 weeks here, testing that all-time high area. It looks like we're about to break away into that bull. And then it's just a couple more weeks to the downside, 3 weeks or so to the downside. We're talking months of consolidation and a lot of uncertainty for Bitcoin in that area. And you can notice the Bitcoin halving was right around here. Bitcoin made a pull away from this Fibonacci retracement, pulled back in. But what I want to talk about, and this plays into the shorter term charts, the reason I'm bringing that up, and I know that's not the first time I brought that up, but when we're talking about the similarities of this move and how Bitcoin fell, the one thing that just keeps it just on my mind right now is that 20-week moving average, right? Bitcoin pulling into that 20-week moving average all along that bull market, as you can see. And then if we go back and we look at even the last cycle before it kind of took off, it was hitting that 20-week moving average. But if we go to where we are right now, you can just see, let me just move this real quick. Bitcoin, this is the least convincing thing for me, this test at the 20-week. Look at that crazy weekly candle. I mean, this could end up being so bullish and Bitcoin might not test the 20-week moving average anymore. But Bitcoin just wicking just above that 20-week moving average. This space that you see here, the 20-week moving average down here in the mid-50s or so, this is the one thing that causes me, when we're going to start diving into the zoomed in charts, it causes me to just say, you know what? There's, I think, a really strong possibility Bitcoin could continue lower at least. And this consolidation could last a little bit longer. And we'll see what targets look like in a minute. But that space right there, that just general move to the 20-week moving average, I think, is very strongly in play, because if we look at previous cycles, post-Bitcoin halving, it's a very normal thing for Bitcoin to just pull back into that 20-week and continue to the upside. And I'm not so convinced with that. Now, if we talk about the short term, what Bitcoin's doing, I actually want to revisit a video. This was just from the other day, and we have kind of an update to this. So check this out. And here's where things get interesting. These are the gems. How does Bitcoin interact now with this 20-day moving average, which is almost perfectly confluent with the 618 of that Fibonacci range and the 50-day moving average? So a couple things going on with that. If we're opening up, so we get the answer to that question. How's Bitcoin kind of just going to interact with these areas, right? And what we were discussing was a potential for a lower high for Bitcoin. It's kind of been lower highs right there. We have this Fibonacci in that previous lower high, Bitcoin failing right there along with these moving averages. And then we saw Bitcoin pulling back into this another Fibonacci lower high area, lower high range. It was within the range when I did that video. Bitcoin failed to close candles above that area. And not only that, and this is again on the short term what we can watch for, the 20-day moving average. So Bitcoin has essentially failed to really do anything meaningful above the lower end of that Fibonacci and that confluent area of the 20-day moving average. And even right now, you can just see the Bitcoin daily candle that just closed, and this was like 20 minutes ago or so, it failed to break above. And right now, Bitcoin failing to just trade above that 20-day moving average. The key point here on the short term is this area, and we're talking about $63,100 or so. That is an incredibly big area of resistance right now. The Fibonacci, the 20-day moving average. Before we talk about downside, I do want to just point something out. This is what I'll be watching the next day or so. Can Bitcoin just make a move to the upside, on close a strong daily candle above the 20-day, maybe even make its way towards the upper end of this Fibonacci, the upper end of the Fibonacci retracement around 65,000. And then lastly, that last hurdle is the 50-day, just above that, 65,500 or so. What I see here happening is a potential inverse head and shoulders. If it can break all of that resistance, kind of break this neckline, target to the upside, $74,000, $75,000. I like downward sloping inverse head and shoulders for no other reason than I just like them. I think they're cool. They don't always play out, and I'm not sitting here saying it's going to play out, but I really would be curious to see if Bitcoin can break this neckline area of that inverse head and shoulders, pretty confluent with the entire range of resistance that Bitcoin has, 65,000 to right around that 20-day 63,000. 63 to 65,000. Huge resistance for Bitcoin. Bitcoin breaks it. This could be the bullish move for Bitcoin, and the consolidation could be over very soon. That's in the short term bullish kind of scenario. But then we have the bearish scenario. That is to say, this resistance holds true. We get another lower high in this trend downwards, and Bitcoin continues not only to test this previous swing low that it had, but it just continues to go lower. And we have the target still, $52,000. There's a lot going on here, but it's quite simple. Just technical analysis, patterns, moving averages, all that good stuff. And it's actually, from a technical analysis perspective, doing the TA on this, it's actually really fun because there is so much going on. But there's that symmetrical triangle, broke out of it, pulled back to the apex. It's just a perfect move, right? Did not break above. And then many people, if you're the type of person that shorts things, right, this would be a nice entry for a short, just getting that resistance, Bitcoin falling lower, still not hitting its target. But the targets are to the lower 50s. That plays heavily into this conversation about this 20-week moving average needing to be tested. And I'd be very curious, if Bitcoin were to fall into that target area, how does the weekly candle close? Is it a quick kind of move to the area and a pop back above so that we have kind of a nice wick in that general 20-week moving average? What's that going to look like? I'm so curious, especially because all of this is happening earlier this cycle, this big consolidation move for Bitcoin, the Bitcoin having just happened. That alone, I think, is a very bullish piece of data that we've never had before. And with that, Bitcoin's diverging a little bit from previous cycles. So anything could happen right now. But this is what I'm watching for Bitcoin. Let's pivot over to ADA right now. ADA on the weekly, you get a picture of it, and then we're going to go look at ADA on the daily. It really discusses on the daily chart maybe some more downside. When is ADA actually going to break out? What's the deal? But if we look at the weekly, I wanted to point something out. Even with downside on the shorter term, mid-term, this weekly stock RSI is probably one of my favorite things happening on the ADA charts right now. I don't want to say every time, and I'm not going to sit here and just explore every single time ADA hit this stock RSI oversold, but I would say close to every time when ADA is making that move on this momentum oscillator here, quicker moving momentum oscillator into oversold, it's doing at the very least this one thing, and that is to say it's at least pulling into the 20-week moving average. You can see it happening there. That's in the bottom of the bear market. It happened here when it was breaking through the 20-week moving average. So those two areas, back to the 20-week, right here, oversold, at least pulling into the 20-week, getting above the 20, and then obviously failing around that 50. But you can just see, even in a bear market bottom scenario, ADA is making a move to the 20. Even in the middle of a bear market, when ADA is getting oversold on the stock RSI, it's at least pulling into the 20-week, right? It's just that piece of consolidation happening. We go all the way back here. You can just see maybe a more similar time of the cycle. Here's the Bitcoin halving last cycle. ADA shortly after falling oversold, and there's that very similar move on the weekly right here, below the 20-week moving average in between the 50 and the 20. ADA oversold. Notice some volatility there, huge wick to the downside, but during that consolidation, it was the setup for finally that breakout, right? And maybe ADA is in a similar environment where if we look at the weekly chart, there could be some downside, right? But we are oversold on that stock RSI. And historically, for ADA, anytime that happens, a move to, at the very least, test the 20-week moving average is in play. And right now, that's in the mid-50s, 55 cents or so. So that's on the weekly, something I'm very curious of that is playing out. And then if we go to the daily chart, I obviously have this kind of fractal here. What this is, if I zoom all the way out on this, it's very simple. We've been talking a lot about this, and a lot of people have. But the consolidation that is taking place for ADA right now, this, very similar kind of structure as back here, right? Happening earlier this cycle around. Here's the Bitcoin halving, and then this is the Bitcoin halving last cycle. We talk about this a lot. I don't want to repeat myself too much. But speaking to that weekly consolidation that we just discussed, right? Kind of ADA is oversold on the stock RSI and needs to bottom out. Maybe it's bottoming out now. It's in that process. But I went back and I was like, I really, it's kind of fun, not just to see it, but to really, in my mind, be able to anticipate a certain timeline in terms of answering that question. How long until ADA is even back above $1? What does that look like? I think people have wanted ADA to be back above $1 before Bitcoin halving. I said I don't think that was going to happen. But now that Bitcoin halving has happened, people want ADA above $1 now. How long though might that be? If we look at these similarities in the consolidation, somewhere around here, right? Just ADA falling, in the process of falling. I took a bars pattern and I just kind of took it from like right here and just the exit, right? And I just scrolled over. And notice, I want you to notice something. This entire move is similar, but just notice all of this breakout. This was, if we look at the timeline after halving, that breakout right there, that was like 220 days. And that's ADA breaking 30 cents last cycle, right? Not back above $1. That's just breaking that 30-cent milestone, 220 days past the Bitcoin halving. So if we take that fractal and we say, you know what, there's that similar downturn, and now we're kind of just in this consolidation, whether it's going to be higher highs and higher lows like it was last cycle. Maybe it'll be lower lows and lower highs, and ADA goes lower, right? So maybe that's not the channel ADA falls in right now. Would be very nice if it was. Maybe the channel is kind of like something like this, lower lows, lower highs before the breakout. Either way, timeline wise, interesting to see this. And if we zoom out, right here is not, 30 some cents. Right here is actually $3, right? That's all-time high. But check this out. Where's $1? This is to kind of help answer that question. $1 is like right around here. And maybe this is more comparable to when it was breaking 30 some cents last cycle. But $1 is right here, and we're looking at August, the end of summer. So that's kind of a wake-up call, right? And I want to show you something that's even crazier. This is the wake-up call. From Bitcoin halving to breaking back above $1, right? 130 some days, 130 some days after Bitcoin halving to break back above $1 to get that very similar move from last cycle when ADA was breaking back above, 30 cents or so, right? Look at that. That's even sooner, but I know, because in my mind, I'm sure many of you are the same, it seems like, man, this is taking so long for ADA to break out, to break back above $1. But I think this is important for me, and this is why I'm doing this. This is me tracking my journey, how I track these charts. And yeah, I'll sprinkle some copium in there, right? But I need to continually revisit these charts to understand timeline. Because if you just take a quick glance on the short-term daily, and if you're especially distracted with other cryptos and what they're doing, it's easy to just be like, man, this is terrible. Why is ADA not back above $1 yet? And this is why. Because it's 100% normal considering what ADA did last cycle. And this concept and the way I'm planting this data on the chart, this is so consistent across cryptocurrencies, right? Across the space, right? So that's just kind of what ADA is looking at right now. In terms of targets, you can actually see ADA, maybe it's going to fall more, right? We do have the target to the downside still on the daily chart out of the rising wedge. It broke out of the rising wedge in April. The target to downside is the lower 30s. Maybe that move needs to happen before all of this. But there's the case for ADA, and I'm going to put it all in the timestamps because I know people will just be looking for the bullish case. There's the case for ADA, but we're going to have to just track this. That 20-day moving average, getting back above that area and starting to make that move to the upside. There's a very similar vibe if we zoom out on the ADA charts to how ADA is kind of bottoming on the RSI right now. You can see the slower moving momentum oscillator and how it was kind of doing this, a very similar type of thing back here. And we talked about this in the last video, but it's important to note how long it took for consolidation before ADA really made a power move above the 20-day. I know ADA is testing the 20-day right now. I would really like to see the power move above, but I'm not quite sure. It really depends on what Bitcoin and altcoins and the crypto markets in general are going to do. If they're going to make a bullish move, maybe the breakout potential for ADA, it is here, right? But we have to break this 20-day moving average first, and it's literally right where ADA is right now. And then after that, it's the 200, the 50, that general area around 52, 53 cents. That's that next big area of resistance for ADA. ADA could pop to that area. It could just be kind of a short-term double top, and ADA could continue to its target. So there's a lot of resistance ADA needs to break through to really get that bullish confirmation. And I'm sitting here and I'm just kind of like, I'm doing nothing else but waiting. There's nothing else to do. I'm really curious to see how this consolidation for Bitcoin, for Cardano, for crypto in general ends in general. But I think it just, as always, requires patience. So those are my thoughts on Bitcoin, on ADA. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, everybody. I appreciate you cruising through. Please hit the subscribe if you're out there. If you're tracking this crazy consolidation, it's like months. I can't believe it's been months. I'll see you in the next video. God bless.